Heritage Foundation's Google Plus Hangout. Today we're having a conversation on immigration reform. It's a hot topic in the news today because President Obama was meeting with the Congressional Hispanic Caucus, and House Republicans are gathering later this afternoon to plot their course on how they will address immigration reform in the U.S. House. We have with us a great panel today. We're going to begin with my colleague Jessica Anderson, who works for Heritage Action as their Deputy Political Director and is on the ground working with grassroots activists all over the country. And then we'll shift to our other panelists momentarily, and I'll introduce them as I turn to them. I want to begin with Jessica today, though, because she does have a sense of what's happening on Capitol Hill, where we've just seen some action in the Senate, a week-long recess when members were back home hearing from constituents on a variety of issues, including immigration, and now where things head from here. There's obviously a lot of pressure on House Republicans to act, and I think the question is, will they do it? And if they do, what approach will they take to immigration reform? So Jessica, I'll kick it over to you to let us know what you're hearing.
Thanks, Rob. It's great to be with everyone today. As Rob mentioned, we are right in the middle of this immigration battle, really as we speak, as the full House Republican Conference is looking to meet this afternoon. And going into this leadership meeting, it's really important to know what's happened over the last 15 days. For those that have been following the fight on immigration, we know that the bill started in the Senate as a product of the Gang of Eights perspective. It's a bipartisan commission. We felt very strongly that the bill was flawed, and the reason is because it led with amnesty. And conservatives have the strong and principled position that amnesty is not the solution, and that the Gang of Eight amnesty bill, however it moves through the House, must be defeated. And so as we go into the meetings this afternoon, as staffers and House members are meeting, what we really want to do is make sure that our members of Congress understand that we need to be united in our opposition to any House immigration bill, whether it's a piecemeal bill or a full conglomerate bill, that the current amnesty debate has to end. And what we're seeing basically this week, there's two approaches that are going on. One are these piecemeal bills where House Republicans and House Democrats are trying to sneak in bills and different writers that would have the amnesty component. So we want to be strong and steadfast in our opposition there, so that when the bill ends up in conference or it's joined back with the Senate, there's no way that an amnesty bill can be attached to the Gang of Eight. So that's really what we're watching today. We need to watch very closely to see how House Republicans react, what they put forth. This week, there's been a number of meetings, both in the day and night. Just 2 nights ago, a small group of Republican lawmakers met. They discussed, what their plan would be going forward. And really today, this afternoon, is the most consequential of the meetings that we need to be looking out for.
Great, Jessica. That's a great perspective, and I think you definitely nailed it there when it comes to some of the concerns down the road when whatever product in the House, whatever product in the Senate come together, what that ultimately means. Now, right. When it comes to studying the impact of the legislation, Derek Morgan and his team have really done quite a bit of work, both looking at the cost and looking at some of the other factors that go into the policy behind it. Derek leads our team of domestic and economic policy researchers. He's the vice president of domestic and economic policy at the Heritage Foundation. Derek, bring us up to speed on what you see as the big debate that's taking place in Washington right now. Obviously, the Gang of Eight was able to cobble together 68 votes in support of its measure. Where do you see things? How do you see things playing out in the House?
Well, unfortunately, Rob, I think in some ways it's deja vu all over again. It's playing out sort of like the 1986 bill did. That was a while ago now, but let me give you the basic contours of that because they're very similar to today. In that case, you had a plan to solve the illegal immigration problem by granting a blanket amnesty. And they told us then it was going to be a one-time only affair, and in return, we would get border enforcement and we would get workplace enforcement as well. Those two promises never materialized, so all we ended up with was the amnesty without those other elements. So fast forward to today, and they're taking the same approach, unfortunately, in the Senate bill, where it has legalization almost instantly, with promises of border enforcement later on and workplace enforcement also later on. So that's our main objection, is that that amnesty or legalization part of the bill is really unfair. It's unfair to those who decided not to come to the United States illegally because they respect the law. It's also unworkable. It's not going to work. We know that. The Congressional Budget Office looked at this legislation and they said that at best it would have, that is, 1/2 illegal immigration would be stopped, maybe as low as 1/3. So that just in a few years we would have millions more unlawful immigrants who came into the country or stayed illegally. So we'd have the same exact problem all over again. And then the third element of it is that it's very costly. We know this because our very own Robert Rector, who spearheaded welfare reform in the 1990s, he looked at more than 30 different taxes that unlawful immigrants pay now and would pay under amnesty, and more than 70 different expenditures, that is, benefits and services that they would receive. And over their lifetimes, he found that it would cost taxpayers trillions of dollars. So because of those three things, that it's unfair, it's unworkable, and it's costly, we think that any amnesty approach needs to be rejected.
Great, and Derek, I'll come back to you to get into some policy specifics in a moment, but I wanted to give Virginia and Isaiah an opportunity to weigh in here. Virginia, we'll begin with you. Virginia Prodan is a Dallas attorney who escaped communist Romania back in the 1980s and was granted political asylum by the Reagan administration in 1988, and obviously has seen firsthand what it's like to become to come to America. And Virginia, you're somebody who's been outspoken and active on this issue, working with Eagle Forum in Texas. Can you tell us why you're engaged in this issue? I think that it's a perspective that in Washington, you know, we have the policy debates, but you have a real life story that you can tell, and I just wanted you to share it with our viewers today.
One very important reason why I am speaking about immigration is, do you want me to wait?
No, you're good. You're good.
Okay. One of the reasons why I am speaking about immigration is because of what this country is all about. I came to the United States as a political refugee, being a human rights attorney in Romania during Ceausescu's, Nicolae Ceausescu's regime. And I also believe that this country is a country of laws and possibilities. First of all, I came to the United States almost 25 years ago. I will celebrate on November 11th this year. Being a political refugee from Romania, I came to the United States without any money, not knowing English, with 2 kids and another one that was born soon after I arrived to the United States. I learned English, and I went to SMU Law School, and I graduated from SMU in 3 years with 2 degrees, Juris Doctor and Master of Laws. I raised 3 kids. One graduated from SMU like me, the second one from Harvard Law School, and the third one from United States Air Force Academy. And I did all of this by being independent and without any help from the government. I believe that United States of America is, again, a country of possibilities, a country of laws, and this is one of the other reasons why, after I graduated from SMU, I opened my own law practice, and I do immigration, because I believe that I understand very well what a legal immigrant goes through when it comes to this country. And also, I have a possibility to help people accommodate to the culture, not by imposing their culture, but by being responsible, successful citizens of this country. And I back up that not only with my story, but with the story of my children that, you know, came here. The girls came here without knowing any word in English. In less than 10 years, they went to SMU or Harvard Law School. This is what this country is all about. I believe that the law should be respected. If you have the chance to come to the United States will give you this possibility to flourish. And this is what this country is all about. We all have immigrants in our family, and the majority of them came with purpose, legal purpose, and with a desire to become part of United States culture. And that's a success of our country. I do not believe that there is any other country that United States that gives people an opportunity not only to be here legally, but also to develop their dream. I remember coming to the United States and receiving a special brochure from the government and from the people who sponsored me. And in that brochure, it says, "Welcome to America. We want you to be successful, learn English, work hard, because when you are successful, we are successful." And it's so true, really is.
Yeah, that's an amazing story of opportunity and really fulfilling the American dream. Thank you, Virginia, for sharing that. I want to give Isaiah an opportunity to share his story, and then we'll turn to just some questions. Isaiah Cohen is from Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, and as I understand it, Isaiah, your fiancé is waiting to come to America lawfully
Yes.
from the Philippines. Can you tell us why you have become outspoken on this issue?
Well, for one, I don't even know how I'm going to possibly follow Virginia's story, because that was just absolutely outstanding.
Thank you.
Well, interestingly enough, I come from an interesting family structure. I have 3 adopted siblings, all from the Marshall Islands, who came here legally. Most of my closest friends are either children of immigrants or are immigrants themselves, one of whom has a mother who's incredibly active on this issue, Fidelia Friedman. She's very active within Pennsylvania Republican politics. And the big thing that, the main reason that I've become so outspoken about it is that we always talk about how we're able to pursue our happiness in this country. And it's kind of like we're being fought on this issue. At the very least, those of us who found love with another individual who's just, they're not originally from here. They want to be here so bad. I mean, she has family members. My fiance has family members who are here who are going through the legal process. In fact, there's nobody from her family who's come here illegally. They've waited, 3 years. Some have waited 6 years. Some of, are waiting, 9, 10 years. I mean, it's absolutely incredible the struggles that they go through. And my friend's mother, the one that I mentioned before, she came here from incredibly humble beginnings. I mean, she came here from one of the poorest villages in Mexico, and she worked hard. Her sacrifice is something that shouldn't be spit upon through what they're doing with this bill. I mean, it's absolutely horrendous. It's like saying your effort was absolutely worthless. You could have just done it this way. And, it spits on the efforts of other people that I know who are going through the same struggles. I've got a great friend in Pakistan, Shiraz Mahmood, who's been trying for 4 or 5 years now to be able to come here and join his wife here. And it is heartbreaking the amount of work that we have to go through, and the number of hurdles that we have to go through. And then you see something like this come up, and you see individuals essentially stealing their place. And I feel for the individuals who've come here fleeing persecution illegally, and they're working to make things right. But that's not the majority of these people. It's not the majority of them at all. They knew exactly what they were doing. Many of them hired somebody to sneak them over here. And everybody pursues the dream, but that doesn't mean that you're entitled to steal someone else's dream. And that's what this is doing. This is stealing. It's stealing our dream. My fiance and I want to be able to start a family, and it's just stealing our dream.
Isaiah, thank you for sharing that moving story. Derek, I wanted to give you an opportunity to offer your thoughts on the two stories that we just did here. One of the things that Heritage has pointed out is that there are 4.4 million people waiting to come to America lawfully. As Isaiah just pointed out, I mean, there are many who you know, this idea that certain people who skipped ahead of them in line, you know, should not be just granted amnesty automatically, especially when you have those who are waiting in a process to come to America. Your thoughts on that particular aspect, and maybe some of the ways that we could go about trying to solve those challenges.
I think that is an excellent point, and something that is very important to talk about, because really you've got the other side in this debate that is insisting that they have to have this amnesty provision, or they're not going to do anything to fix our immigration system. Instead, we ought to look at solving the border issues, solving the workplace enforcement issues, and really reforming the legal immigration system. You know, we heard two great stories here from Isaiah and from Virginia about their own experiences with that. And you know, I know Isaiah's troubles are also many others today, that they're waiting to come into the United States. Perhaps they studied here and they would love to be here. They would love to start their families here, but we make it very difficult. And these are people who want to play by the rules. They want to do what's right, and we know that they're going to contribute to our economy. And we know even from the research that we did, where we looked at what the cost of an amnesty would be to the American people, we know that folks like that who settle in the United States would actually grow the economy and help other taxpayers, because they're going to be contributing way more in taxes than they receive in benefits and services. So really, all of that points to a win-win. So why wouldn't we fix those problems where there can be more agreement? But instead, we have the other side that's insisting that they have to have this mass legalization that's unfair, unworkable, and costly. And in fact, they don't just want legalization, they want a path to citizenship as well.
Mm-hmm. Jessica, I want to turn to you. Go back to a point that you said at the beginning. Why are you suspicious of any effort that would bring together a series of maybe piecemeal bills that the House of Representatives passes to address some of the points that Derek just made, and then what would play out in the Senate? Can you explain some of the process here that typically those of us in Washington may enjoy, but the average American doesn't necessarily have time to understand how the legislative game is played in Washington, D.C.?
Absolutely. And before I get to that, I just want to echo what Derek and Isaiah are saying about amnesty and the danger of it. Having this, you know, one-size-fits-all solution is not a solution, and we as conservatives need to be armed with the facts to fight back against that, and to encourage our members of Congress to be courageous on that. So when this comes to the House floor, and when all of this background and baggage attached to this bill comes before House Republicans, I am optimistic, but I'm also very sensitive to the fact that a piecemeal bill that breaks apart amnesty, or it applies it to one group of people over another, anything like that, we should be incredibly suspicious of. Because by the time it gets to conference, so once the House has debate on it, once it goes through committee, once amendments are added, when it gets to conference and it's potentially joined back with the Senate's Gang of 8 bill, we don't want anything coming from the House to look remotely like the Senate's Gang of 8 bill, because then they'll merge them together, and then that's what will go to the president's office. So as conservatives, we need to be, incredibly staunch on, getting our stories out there. Isaiah and Virginia are fantastic examples of, look, it's an emotional conversation. it's an emotional conversation. It hits very close to home for everyone, whether we have immigrants in our own family or not. I mean, it's emotional. We need to get these stories out into the streets in front of members of Congress, and really urge them to stand strong. And that's what we've seen the last 10 days. I will add this, that as members were home this last week for recess, we saw an incredible outpouring of support for members of Congress to be courageous. Town halls were flooded with conservatives pleading not to take any bill that would have an amnesty component to it. And as Derek said, we need to go back and say, look, we have a legal immigration system. Let's fix that. Let's spend our money, let's spend our resources, and let's spend our time on fixing what is already in place. Let's look at workforce laws. Let's look at the border. Let's look at what we need to increase agents along the border. I mean, there's a whole host of reforms that need to take an effect before we should even get to the point of a one-size solution, which isn't a solution at all to provide an amnesty.
Virginia and Isaiah, a question for both of you. Do you feel that your voice is being heard? Do you think that people are recognizing some of the things that you've just shared on this Hangout today?
Yes, I believe so. I had the opportunity to be the keynote speaker at many rallies, to speak at Tea Party or Republican Party, women's group, and many of them recorded my speech and put it on different social media. I myself did some YouTube videos, and I received feedback from even young liberals saying, nobody told us this part of the story. I am going to vote for a conservative way of doing things, including immigration. I also had the opportunity, and I will speak to radio tonight, that will have an impact all over the United States, talking about why we cannot have amnesty. And coming from a political refugee immigrant, from a Tea Party leader that I am, and precinct chair that I am, with a story that I have, and also for an attorney doing immigration, I believe has a great impact. Because I have to tell you all that many of my clients or relatives of my clients are very upset that they had to wait, and they are still waiting for their relatives. And they pay money, they follow the procedure, and those illegal immigrants, they will receive the benefit. And I believe it's going to be a very dangerous point for United States of America. Remember what I said about the brochure and how I was invited to be part of United States culture? It looks to me that the amnesty bill is, we Americans, we're going to please you, and we're going to accommodate you as a culture. Tell us what you want us to do, and we're going to do it. Well, if we do with a group, I want to ask you what's going to happen with the next group, and so forth. And United States of America will look like not America at all. So we have to take a position. And also, what do we teach our children, next immigrants? That this country will pick and choose laws or respecting the laws when we deal with people. In my speech, I talk with people about the following. We all, as a person, as an individual, as a mother of 3 children, my actions will affect my children. And we have the laws with a compassion type of attachment to them. Let me give you an example. If I don't pay the bills and I have to pay interest for my bills, not only I will suffer, but my kids will suffer, because I have to take money from somewhere to pay those bills. Mm-hmm. If I do more than that, I will be in jail. My kids will suffer too, because their mom will not be there, and so forth. So when people talk about, oh, these kids are brought here by their parents and everything, I understand. But we all, by our actions, We all pay the price individually or people around us. So that is built in our laws, because by paying the price by ourselves or our children and others, we teach by our laws that if you don't obey this other the punishment, and we expect you to learn from this and to go on and be a respectful person. But I do not believe with those, if we do amnesty, that there will be a teaching. There will be United States of America doesn't respect the law, and you should not be expected to obey the law. I can tell you, when the judge tells people, you will be deported, do you choose forced deportation or volunteer? Many of them will say, I choose volunteer. When they leave the building of the courthouse, they will say, I just lied to the judge. You know what? I'm not going to do it. Nobody's going to force me to leave. That is something really bad that we are doing to new immigrants to this country, saying we pick and choose. And I believe Derek was right. We have to fix the immigration law that we have it right now. More than that, we have to enforce the immigration law, because we have a lot of good immigration laws that are workable for United States of America.
Thank you, Virginia. Isaiah, did you want to weigh in? I know you're both active on Twitter and social media to tell your story. Are there specific things that you're doing, Isaiah, to make sure people know about the dynamic that you spoke about?
I try to explain things in a manner that folks can relate to. I mean, you have to bring in the concept of family, you have to bring in the concept of friends, you have to bring in the concept, like Virginia got to, of responsibility. I mean, it's not just how it looks to people here of what we're doing. You have to think about the people who are making these sacrifices, like my fiance, like my friend Shiraz, like so many others that I personally know who are making the sacrifice to come here legally. What does this bill say to them? It was a grandiose promise within just the title of what this is, immigration reform. We're expecting something to change. We're expecting things to get better. But there's nothing that's getting better here. There's nothing, they're doing nothing for people who want to come here legally. They're only essentially rewarding people for bad behavior. I mean, you're not going to get people to obey the law if you don't hold them accountable, just like Virginia said. And as I've explained this to people, I've talked to a lot of people my age, and there's this idea that all people my age are liberal, or they're far left, or they're kind of flimsy conservatives, but that's not the case whatsoever. There are a whole lot of people who understand this message a whole lot better than they're given credit for. And a whole lot of the folks that I've talked to who are liberal, when you start bringing in the concept of what this actually is, they have trouble with it, because they're looking at it and they're listening to the talking points on the news and everything, and they're hearing one side of things. Well, it's totally going to improve things, right? No, it's not. It's not improving the situation whatsoever. I mean, you have to consider what this is actually supposed to be about, at least according to the title. And when it comes down to it, it's not as a political speaker who's spoken on the Marcellus Shale issues, which is a completely different issue. I love what she has to say about it. The bill is never about what they say it's about, and I frankly resound with that message. This bill is not what they say it's about, and it needs to get back to what they say it's about. It needs to get back to what actually needs to happen here. We need to stop rebuffing people from coming here legally. We need to actually hold people accountable for their poor and their illegal decisions. It's this whole idea of accountability that is completely lost, at the very least, to an extent, on many people in my generation. And we see this, and we have trouble with it, but we can't do this alone. We have to have people working with us. And I think that we're getting there, but we need our elected representatives to actually represent us.
I have a question that we have from Twitter that kind of follows on some of the points that Isaiah was just making, and Derek or Jessica, maybe this is most appropriate for you. The question is, how can we ensure that adequate immigration reform will happen following this piece-by-piece approach. Anyone want to tackle that one?
Well, I would say one thing to you, Rob, is that in order for any reform to make sense, we really have to have an administration that we can trust. And I'm afraid that we've seen even in this past week with Obamacare, for example, that the administration tends to be generous, bend the law. They'll find ways where, oh, we're not going to apply that law this year for a whole nother year, or if you think back to they were supposed to defend federal law in the Defense of Marriage Act, and they decided they weren't going to do that. There's just example after example. They did it in the immigration context when the Dream Act, so-called Dream Act, was not acted on by Congress. The president just did it himself. So we have an administration that's kind of indicated to us that they're not really serious about enforcing the laws that are on the books. So it doesn't make a lot of sense to trust them even more with this bill, especially when it's already written into the law that they have hundreds and hundreds of waiver opportunities, which they haven't even needed in other contexts.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I would. Oh, go ahead, Virginia.
I agree with Derek. I believe the changes to the immigration law will have to have two very important points. One is to protect the sovereignty of the United States of America. And protecting the border is the most important thing. And that has to be proven guidance and assurance to American people that, like Derek said, they don't trust the administration who picks and choose what law. And that's a horrible type of example for an administration to do that. The second part is the immigration should be what used to be a long time ago, laws that will protect the needs of America and the needs of Americans. If we need more investors, that we will need to develop that. If we need temporary workers, that they will have to do that. And no amnesty at all to reward the ones who broke the law. That will break the American spirit. That will change the cultures of the United States of America. And I believe I want to say to the Republican Party, if you adopt this bill, you signed yourself the killing of the Republican Party, because this country will have only one party. All those illegal immigrants, they will depend on the government. They will be Democrats. I can tell you, and living under a communist government with only one government, one party, I can tell you, Republicans, wake up. Representatives, you have a job to do. Do not kill the Republican Party and do not kill the United States of America. Stay strong. Build another immigration. We do not have to adopt the immigration this year. We can wait and make it better.
Virginia, go ahead. I wanted to ask a follow-up, but go ahead, Jessica.
Well, I would just add, to go back to the tweeter's question that came in, is just real briefly, Heritage Foundation has done a fantastic job of outlining a step-by-step approach of what actual comprehensive immigration reform looks like, and that's what we need to get in the hands of not only activists to give to their members of Congress, but at Heritage Action, we're working to make sure an actual plan and a proposal as far as what to do next is getting in these important House Republicans' hands. So we need to be active on that, both on the Hill and then as activists throughout the country.
So I want to ask one final question. We're coming up here on the end of the conversation, and it stems from something that Virginia just raised, and it's stuck out to me because there's a pollster who's quoted in a Politico article today, kind of laying out the landscape for where things go. And by the way, Politico sees immigration reform dying a slow death, according to the headline of the piece by Mike Allen and Jim Vandehei. Anyways, the quote is, Republicans would remain stuck in a defensive reactionary posture with persuadable Latino voters. The quote seems to suggest that if Republicans don't do this, then they're going to pay a political backlash. Now, I've been on the Hill and heard folks like Congressman Raul Labrador say from the get-go, if you're doing this for political reasons, you're doing this for all of the wrong reasons. So So Jessica, if you want to take that, or anybody else who would care to comment on this, that it needs to be based on principle and not politics. And it seems to me there are some out there who are saying, no, it needs to be the other way around. We need to win more voters, so we need to do this.
Absolutely, Rob. Frankly, I think that is a media-driven narrative that we conservatives need to fight against. Because the reality is the bill that the Senate passed does not help Hispanics. It does not secure the border. It doesn't stop the flow of illegal immigration into this country. It doesn't tackle the overstaying visa problem. And it doesn't help, as Isaiah said, those that are in his family that have come here legally. It doesn't help them. It just doesn't help them, frankly. So to say that this bill hurts Hispanics and then should be done for political capital is a falsehood that's being spun by the media, and it's a narrative that we need to fight against and say, no, actual real immigration reform where we secure the border, where we continue to put in place our legal immigration plans, protects Hispanics, and that's how we act. Conservatives, the left doesn't understand this because they don't vote on principle, and conservatives do, and we stand on principle, and that's why we're digging in our heels when it comes to this, and that's why today's meetings are incredibly important for us to see courage and leadership from House Republicans, to stand strong.
Wonderful.
I agree with what Jessica said. I believe it shouldn't be a political point. For our representative, it should be courageous. They are there for a specific reason, and if they think for the benefit of United States of America, they will think not for winning their votes, but for United States of America to remain the country of laws, the country of welcoming immigrants, but legal immigrants. And first of all, making sure that our borders are secure, because not only illegal immigrants are coming, but terrorists are coming into this country and they will destroy the country. That somehow they have to understand that they have an opportunity, a lifetime opportunity to stay courageous and stay for United States of America and not for votes. People will come and vote for them because they were courageous and did what was right for America. I hope they do that.
And I frankly think that this idea that I guess the Republican leadership has in its heads that if they grant amnesty that they're going to be getting this influx of voters is absolutely ludicrous. This is, as best as I can understand, at least from the political standpoint that they're talking about this idea that they're going to try to buy voters by giving them what they want. And frankly, this is an idea, just like Virginia said, that we need to get away from. We need to run away from it because we're losing who we are. We're losing what our country claims to be about, that we're supposed to be this country that, even those who are disadvantaged are listened to. And frankly, speaking as someone who's particularly disadvantaged by this bill and knowing individuals who are being disadvantaged by this bill, we feel that we're being completely ignored. And frankly, half the reason, getting back to the initial question that we were asked before, half the reason that I started to speak out is that I think that they need to understand they're going to be held accountable. That if you mess up here, it's not going to go away. It's not going to be something that's going to be forgotten as just one little vote. It's going to be remembered. Mm-hmm. And these people who are going through the legal process, when they get here, they won't forget who forgot them, who left them behind, who left them hanging out to dry. I mean, this is where it was this great idea encompassed within a title that was full of absolute nothing.
Derek, I want to give you the final word here today. Anything you want to leave us with?
Yeah, I would just say that securing the border first and fixing the legal immigration system is popular actually with all Americans. In fact, I saw one poll among registered Hispanic voters that they too want to secure the border first by 60% margin. So I don't think you don't ever want to do policy based on the politics of it, but I think in this case it's especially misguided because I don't think it's actually a very good political calculus either. So I think what we need to do is do what's right. We need to reject the amnesty approach, an amnesty approach that is unfair, as we've heard today very eloquently. It's also not going to fix the problem. Even CBO recognizes that. And third, that it's very, very costly. And so for those reasons, I think we have to approach the legalization first immigration reform proposals.
Thank you, Derek. Thank you, Jessica. Thanks, Isaiah. And thanks, Virginia. Great discussion today. I encourage all of you to stay tuned for updates on what's happening on the Hill and around Washington, D.C. You can go to heritage.org for updates. You should also sign up for our daily Morning Bell email, which you can do at morningbell.org, and get updates on the day's news and our analysis of the immigration debate and other issues that are taking place in Washington, D.C. on a daily basis. So we thank you for joining us today. We will be back. We do these Hangouts once every week or two and tackle immigration among a variety of topics that we want to make sure that you're up to speed on, and encourage your questions and participation always. So thank you very much. Thank you again to our panel, and look forward to seeing you again next time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
For
Thank
having
you.
us.